Hi, welcome back to the Online Jewelry Academy. I'm John Ahr and I'll be your instructor today. Today we're going to make a project that incorporates color. And this is a really simple project that anybody can make and with a minimal amount of materials. So as you can see, I've laid out a necklace that shows us what our goal is for today. These are simple copper discs that are opened up with a small hole that allows us to string them onto a leather thong. So for this project, what you're going to need is, of course, copper sheet, probably in about a 22 or 20 gauge, sandpaper, some type of cutting device. You can use a jeweler's saw, but today I'm going to show you how to use a disc cutter. You're also going to need some gesso and a paintbrush. And you'll need a variety of Prismacolor pencils. It's important that you get the Prismacolor variety. You'll also need a pencil sharpener, some Workable Fixative, and a matte finish. And finally, don't forget, you're also going to need some eye protection. Now, this is a good point for me to mention to you that if you haven't checked out our safety video, this is a great time to do it before you get started. You always want to play safe. Now, let me clear the table and I'll show you how this is done. Okay, now that I cleared the table, let me show you step by step how we go about making our necklace. First of all, I want to prepare the copper. Now, it's really important that you put a tooth to the copper material. And what that means is you really want to have a grain or a surface that's uneven that will allow the gesso material to adhere to. So I'm going to take just ordinary sandpaper, probably 320 grit would be the best, and what you want to do is just give it a real uneven sanding. Just go over the whole surface of the material, and that way you don't have to go back and make any corrections. Now, I've prepped the other side of this material already, and let me show you how I did that. I ran it through a rolling mill with the same type of sandpaper, and it gave me a very grainy, rough surface, which is perfect for this. And as you can see, it covered the entire surface of the copper. So once you've prepped that copper surface, you need to cut it. Now, I'm going to use a disc cutter, like I was telling you. And the disc cutter is a great tool. It will make absolutely perfect circles every time if you use it correctly. So what we do is we use this disc cutter with our copper and, I can't look it up, and a hammer. Now, this necklace uses 1-inch discs, which is the largest hole on the disc cutter. So what you're going to do first is simply open up the disc cutter. Now this one's kind of sticking. If that happens, all you have to do is give it a light tap and it should just come right apart. There we go. Alright, you'll slide your metal in, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that you take the disc cutter and you look to make sure that there are no gaps. You don't want to be able to see any daylight through the opening. Just like that. Now, once you've got your copper in the right position, you want to take the shiny edge or end of the disc cutter and put it into the tool. We're going to need a hammer in order to use the disc cutter, and you're going to need a heavy hammer. Now, any hammer will do. You just want to position this so that you're going to do a clean blow and give it a good strike. That's that simple. So we remove it and voila, a perfect disc. Now we're going to need to create an opening in that disc, and we're just going to basically use the same tool, except we're going to use a smaller cutting device. So let me put this one away. And what you can do if you need to is you could pre-mark the disc to indicate where the hole should go. I'm just going to wing it and see how well I do here. And open sesame, there we go. So I'm going to look through the tool and position the disc where I think it needs to go. And then I'll insert the cutting device. Remember, the shiny end goes in. Make sure that you're well positioned before you strike it, and give it one good clean blow. Okay, maybe two. And again, it comes right through the piece. There's the piece we just cut out, and there's our perfect disc that's prepped and ready to go. Now, let me clean this up, and we'll move on to the next phase. What you want to do is you want to keep the back surface of the piece nice and clean. You don't want to have a lot of unnecessary gesso and other material stuck to the back of it. You want the back to always look as pretty as the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some blue painter's tape, which is really easy to remove, and I'm just going to position the piece onto the tape, pressing it down, and then so it doesn't move around, I'll take a little bit more of the tape and I'll tape it down to a paper surface. Now, it's a good idea to do this, number one, so that the piece is easy to move around and it doesn't get away from you. And this will also protect your work surface from getting any gesso on it. The gesso is kind of hard to get off. Alright, so I'm ready now to apply the gesso. It's a water-based material, and it is easily applied with a paintbrush. Alright, so shake up your gesso first. You don't know how long it's been sitting on the shelf at the art store. So once you've gotten it shook up, open it up, and for small projects like this, I like to just work outside of the cap. And all you need to do is just load your brush with some gesso and just start painting the surface of the disc. Now, gesso, like I said, is water-based, so it will easily clean up with water. And the great thing about it is that you can leave either a rough or you can create a smooth surface. Now, if you want a smooth surface, what you do is you allow the gesso to dry thoroughly for 24 hours. And I'm not kidding. It really needs to dry that long. And once it's dry, you can take a very, very fine sandpaper, either an emery paper or maybe something like a 1600 grit. Now, you're wondering, where would I get that? Go to an automotive supply store. They sell that type of sandpaper for prepping for painting cars. Anyway, once this is dry after 24 hours, you could give it a light sanding and then paint it again with the gesso so that you get a nice, smooth, even surface. So your preparation on this project might take you 2 or 3 days, believe it or not. So anyway, we'll leave this one to dry, and I'll show you ones that I actually prepped yesterday. And here they are. So you can see I taped them down to the paper with the blue painter's tape, and if I remove one, you can see that the back side of it is nice and clean. There's nothing on the back that's going to be ugly. Because when a piece turns upside down, you want the owner of it to think that that's just as beautiful as the front surface that you decorated. Okay, so the next part is really easy. What you're going to need are your Prismacolor pencils. Now, you want to use Prismacolor pencils because they're the Goldilocks of pencils. They're not too hard and they're not too soft. They're just right for this project. And you can use any color that you like. So let's say, guess you can't guess what my favorite color is. Alright, so what you can do is you can begin by lightly drawing onto the surface of the gesso. And let's say that I want to create a gradient effect, kind of like the background behind me. I want it to go from a dark shade of one color and lightly transition into another. And you're going, well, how is he going to do that? Well, it's pretty easy. If I just keep applying a heavier and heavier amount of this color to one end, and as I move across, start to lighten up how hard I'm holding the pencil and how hard I'm applying it to the surface, you can see how I can start to get a much lighter shade of the orange coming across. Well, the really great thing about this project is if I wanted to create a very, very complex layering of color, what I would do is I would stop, spray the Workable Fixative over the pencil, allow that to dry, and then come back and continue with a different pencil. That way I can get lots of different layers of color. So let's just try to take this one all the way out so that you can see what I was talking about. So let's see, the Online Jewelry Academy has sort of an orangey color at the bottom of its background that leads up to a beautiful blue. Here's a dark blue. Let's go with this. And again, I'll start with a darker, heavier application of the pencil to one side. By the way, if you want white, just leave the gesso. Alright, so we're going to keep moving across with a lighter and lighter value. And like I said, you don't have to try to get this all accomplished in one application of pencil. You could layer it with the Workable Fix. So I'm going to add a little bit of a lighter blue just to give it a little bit more interest in this area. And like I said, you can pick any colors that you like, and I'm sure that you're going to make something really wonderful. Well, now I'm getting close to the point where I'm going to cross into this orange color. Just want to get some more blue over here, and I'll just lightly start to tone the area in between the two. Now, if you've taken drawing classes, you know that this type of pencil will smudge really well. So I'll just use my finger and smudge it a little bit. Knowing that it's going to smudge, you may want to bring out either your Workable Fix or your matte finish and give it a quick spray. So let me take a second and I'll give this a spray and we'll be right back. I just gave this a quick spritz with the matte fixative, so now the colors cannot be blended anymore. They're set, and you want to do that outside or in a well-ventilated area. You don't want to be breathing that in. It's kind of stinky too. Now that this is done, I can attach it to a leather thong like the one that I'm wearing right here. And that's a really easy thing to do. You're going to need about a yard of leather thong. Let me pull one out here. Now you can get this at most any fabric store or bead store. And what you want to do is to put the two ends together and create a parallel sort of line or lines with your leather thong, and pass the loop at the end through the hole in your project. Now once you get that through, take the two ends and pass them through the loop. Just like that. And if you tighten up, it will hold your piece in place. Now you could add knots to either side of this if you want to make it look a little bit more decorative, but this is good enough. Then what you can do in order to make it wearable is you just make an easy necklace by taking one end and passing it around the other end of the thong, making a very small slip knot at the end. Then you take the loose end and you loop it around the other side of the thong and make another slip knot. And this allows you to have an adjustable necklace that you can shorten or lengthen quite easily, making it very wearable. Now, before I end this project, I just want to mention that you don't have to work solely with circles. You could make all kinds of other shapes. I've prepped a number of butterflies right here, and it's very, very easy to get a butterfly pattern. I got these two off of the internet, and I could put them on a photocopier and reduce them down to a wearable size. Or if you want to make your own, the way that I made this pattern was I went online and I printed out a piece of graph paper. You don't have to buy a tablet of graph paper. You can print it out one sheet at a time at home. And I made a fold in the graph paper, and I drew 1/2 of the butterfly wings. Then I went to a window that was sunny, not at nighttime, and I turned it over and I let the light pass through the paper so that I could draw the exact same wing detail to the other side. When you open it up, you have a perfectly symmetrical pattern that's very easy to apply to your copper. What I did was I made several copies of this just by putting pieces of paper over this on a window and tracing them, and then applying them to my copper with glue stick. Once the glue stick had dried, I was able to saw this out and gesso them up, and they're ready to be colored. Now, you can also add more interest to your piece in another way that's incredibly easy, and that is if you add a different type of colored material for the thong. So here are some blue-gray and kind of a chartreuse colored piece of leather. Sort of a suede-y material. And maybe your customer or your friends might like this better. Anyway, this is a crazy, easy, wonderful, colorful project that I hope that you have a lot of fun making. And be sure to double check our safety video, check out our other videos and products on the Online Jewelry Academy. Thanks for watching.